Vijay, I'll come to you in a second with the question. Let me begin with Harivansh ji. Harivansh ji, जब डिजिटल की बात होती है, आप बहुत देर से सुन रहे थे, इतनी देर से. Digital is often something that a lot of people thought exists in PowerPoints or exists in Western speaking things. लेकिन भारत में डिजिटल कितना चल रहा है? In the hinterland.
नलिन जी, सबसे पहले मैं आपको बहुत बधाई दूं. आपकी पहले की पुस्तकें भी हमने पढ़ी हैं और यह पुस्तक भी उसी श्रेणी में, पेजों में कम हो सकती है बट इट्स वेरी इंपैक्टफुल. हमारे यहाँ हिंदी में कहावत है कि यह महत्व नहीं है कि उम्र कितनी लंबी हो, उम्र जो भी हो उस पर असर आप कितना डाल सकते हैं. तो आपकी बहुत रिमार्केबल बुक थी बीजेपी की यात्रा पर. मुझे याद है टेलीविजन के बारे में भी आपने बहुत महत्वपूर्ण किताबें की थी, इंडिया ऑन टेलीविजन. इसी श्रृंखला में, इसी कड़ी में यह भी बड़ी रिमार्केबल बुक है. और मैंने ऐसा कहा कि मैं नॉन डिजिटल वर्ल्ड से हूं. इस डिजिटल वर्ल्ड ने क्या इंपैक्ट डाला है, एज ए ऑनलुकर आई कैन शेयर माय थॉट्स. एक तो सबसे पहले मैं इस किताब के बारे में बहुत ब्रीफली में बताऊं आपको कि द क्रेडिट गोज टू ऑनरेबल पीएम मोदी कि उन्होंने इसका नाम इंडियाज टेकेड दिया. आई वाज रिमाइंडेड व्हाइल रीडिंग इट, हमारे यहाँ सर्वोदय में एक बड़े फिलोसफर हुए, सर्वोदय मूवमेंट में, जो लोगों का आज याद बहुत कम होगा. एंड ही वाज दादा धर्माधिकारी. ही टोल्ड कि दुनिया को बदलने का फिलोसफर्स ने अपनी फिलॉसफी दी, इकोनॉमिस्ट ने इकोनॉमिक दृष्टि से चीजें की. बहुत सारे जो एक्सपर्ट्स अलग अलग इलाके के हैं नैरेटेड दैट इन ए ब्यूटीफुल वे. पर दुनिया को बदला पॉलिटिक्स और पॉलिसी मेकर्स ने. टेक्नोलॉजी जिन चेंजेस को ला रही थी उसको मिस्टर मोदी ने देखा और आज चीप मोबाइल फोन्स, चीप डाटा और यूनिक डिजिटल आईडी सिस्टम ने किस ढंग से अप्रत्याशित डिजिटल पब्लिक गुड्स में बदलाव किया. इसने पूरी पॉलिटिक्स को बदल दिया है. मैं विद्यार्थी था जब पॉलिटिक्स को बड़ा कीनली देखता था. आई विल नैरेट दोज थिंग्स. सोसाइटी को किस रूप में ये ट्रांसफॉर्म कर रही है, गवर्नमेंट का सिटीजन्स के साथ रिलेशनशिप कैसे डिफाइन कर रही है, नेचर ऑफ स्टेट इज बीइंग इटसेल्फ डिफाइंड, रीडिफाइंड. और ऑनरेबल जयशंकर जी का एक कोट आपकी बुक में देख रहा था, ये बहुत पढ़ नहीं सका. द हिस्ट्री ऑफ इंटरनेशनल अफेयर्स इज इन मेनी वेज द हिस्ट्री ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी. मैं ऐड करना चाहूंगा कि टेक्नोलॉजी पूरी हिस्ट्री में गेम चेंजर दुनिया कर रही है. और आज इकोनॉमिस्ट ने जो कमेंट किया भारत के इस डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन पे, आई कोट फ्रॉम योर बुक, इंडियाज पंट ऑन डिजिटल पब्लिक इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, it's, I quote the words, low cost software based version of China's infrastructure led belt and road initiative. सी कितना बड़ा इसका बड़ा इंपैक्ट है. हमारी पीढ़ी जब बड़ी हो रही थी तो हमारी पीढ़ी आइडियाज, थॉट्स, इज्म, यानी पॉलिटिकल आइडियाज, पॉलिटिकल आइडियोलॉजी कैसे समाज को बदलती है, ये हमने देखा. उसी पीढ़ी में पॉलिटिक्स ने मैं अट्रैक्ट किया जब जेपी मूवमेंट चल रहा था. आज लोगों को याद नहीं इस मुल्क में 1974 और 1973 के 50 वर्ष हो रहे हैं. अनफॉर्चुनेट पार्ट इज दैट द कंट्री इज नॉट, मतलब रिमाइंडेड ऑफ दोज डेज. देश में 2 बड़े आंदोलन हुए और पहली बार केंद्र में कोई नॉन कांग्रेस गवर्नमेंट आई. उस आंदोलन के मूल में क्या था? एक नवनिर्माण आंदोलन था गुजरात से और दूसरा बिहार आंदोलन था. आज 50 वर्ष हो रहे हैं. था करप्शन कैसे रूट आउट. और मैं मानता हूं कि राजीव जी ने जो कहा उस वक्त, ये ऑनेस्टली कहा, ही फेल्ट हेल्पलेस कि ऊपर से 1 रुपया चलता है तो वो कैसे नीचे आते आते तक 15 पैसे रह जाते हैं. बाद में राहुल गांधी ने बहुत वर्षों बाद 11-12 के आसपास कालाहांडी के मामले में ये कहा है. पर आज लोगों को ये भी कम याद है. मतलब दिस आई एम टेलिंग यू बेस्ड ऑन माई मेमोरी. एनसी सक्सेना इस देश के रूरल डेवलपमेंट सेक्रेटरी होते थे. वंस इन जयपुर एड्रेसिंग ए मीटिंग ही टोल्ड कि 40 to 43,000 करोड़ रूरल डेवलपमेंट के बजट हैं. अगर ये हम डाउन ट्रॉडन लोगों को सिर्फ मनी ऑर्डर से भेज दिए होते 25-30 वर्षों में, तो भारत की पॉवर्टी लाइन की स्थिति अलग होती। ये लीकेज का मात्रा था। करप्शन वॉज कैंसरस एंड गो बिफोर दैट। आज लोगों को याद नहीं है। मैं मानता हूं कि पंडित जी भी, इरादा उनका बहुत अच्छा था जब उन्होंने कहा कि मैं हर करप्ट को लैंप पोस्ट पर देखना चाहता हूं कि हैंग हो। पर बड़ी महत्वपूर्ण किताब लिखी हमारे मुंबई के बड़े लीडिंग लॉयर होते थे उस एरा के करप्शन के बारे में, कि कैसे सिस्टम में इनरूट था। आज फैक्ट्स में आपको बता रहा हूं, पीयूष जी ने बहुत विस्तार से बताया, 53 मंत्रालयों की कुल 313 स्कीम्स डीबीटी के माध्यम से भेजी जा रही है। ऐसे ट्रांसफर 320 अरब डॉलर से अधिक का हुआ और इस प्रोसेस में 25 अरब डॉलर से अधिक की बचत हुई है। आई डू कम फ्रॉम ए वेरी रिमोट एंड, जो गांधी कहा करते थे ना कि सबसे पिछड़े गांव, दुनिया का कहते थे कि सबसे गरीब आदमी, तो आई डू कम फ्रॉम द विलेज ऑफ लेट जयप्रकाश नारायण। दो नदियों के बीच में बहुत कठिन, जहां आप कल्पना नहीं कर सकते थे कि क्या किस किस्म की गरीबी है। आज इंडियन एक्सप्रेस की रिपोर्ट में 1-2 दिन पहले का देख रहा था कि उसमें पूरा 2.73 लाख करोड़ की बचत हुई डीबीटी से फाइनेंशियल ईयर्स 2015 टू 2022 के बीच। वी नो कैसे फेक राशन होते थे, कार्ड बनते थे, एक टीचर कैसे 20 जगहों पर स्कूलों में पढ़ा रहा है, एक लेक्चरर के नाम कैसे 10 जगह हैं। इट वॉज ए वेरी पावरफुल सिस्टम। हिंदुस्तान के करप्शन का जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी ने अभी कहा कि 10 करोड़ लोगों को हमने खत्म किया है फेक, वी सॉ देम। आई न्यू पर्सनली आर.एस. शर्मा, जब वो आपके झारखंड में थे बिफोर ज्वाइनिंग नंदन इलेक्नी, किस किस्म का प्रॉब्लम कि टीचर समय से पहले ऑफिस नहीं आते थे, इंक्लूडिंग आपके गवर्नमेंट ऑफिशियल्स। बायोमेट्रिक सिस्टम आया, मतलब आप कल्पना नहीं कर सकते किस किस्म का रेजिस्टेंस हुआ, कैसे विरोध हुआ, हड़तालें हुई भाई ऑर्गेनाइज्ड ग्रुप्स। आज 85 करोड़ लोगों के उनके खातों में डीबीटी मिलता है। इट वॉज बियॉन्ड आवर इमेजिनेशन, क्योंकि हम आइडियाज और थॉट्स के एरा से निकले लोग थे कि ऐसा हो सकता है और उसको टेक्नोलॉजी कर सकती है। 10 करोड़ से अधिक किसानों के बैंक खातों में सहायता जा रही है। 2013 से 21 के बीच 4.2 करोड़ फेक राशन कार्ड डिलीट किए गए हैं। 10 करोड़ फेक बेनिफिशियरीज की पहचान हुई है। मैं फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन क्या हुआ, पीयूष जी ने बहुत बताया, पर लास्ट एक और चीज मैं आपको बताना चाहता हूं। पीस ऑफ चेंज क्या हमने अपने जीवन में महसूस किया। मैं टाइम्स से अपना कैरियर शुरू किया था अराउंड इन 80s, लेट 80s। जब मैं बंबई गया तो वो पहली किताब टाइम्स में रहते हुए एक हिंदी वीकली धर्मयुग था बहुत बड़ा, उसमें हम लोग काम करते थे। एल्विन टॉफलर की पुस्तक हमने पढ़ी, फ्यूचर शॉक। फिर हेडी, उन्होंने अपनी पत्नी हेडी टॉफलर और मिलकर 3 सीरीज लिखी थी, थर्ड वेव और पावर शिफ्ट। वो सारा लगता था कि इट विल नॉट हैपन एट ऑल। वो सारा जो कहते हैं ना परिलोक की कथाएं, कि ये दुनिया बदल नहीं सकती, ये होने वाला नहीं, टेक्नोलॉजी इस तरह हमारे जीवन को बदल नहीं सकती। 92 और 97 के अराउंड में इकोनॉमिस्ट की एक महिला पत्रकार की पुस्तक पढ़ी, द डेथ ऑफ डिस्टेंस। तब मैं अपने गांव से कोरिलेट करने लगा कि मुझे अपने गांव जो 2 नदियों के बीच में, वहां से बंबई पहुंचने में आज 4 दिन का समय लगता है। और ये जो सारा चेंजेज हो रहा है लेड बाय टेक्नोलॉजी, इसे कैसे हम एक दिन में पहुंच सकते हैं, व्हाट काइंड ऑफ इंपैक्ट इट विल मेक। फिर रॉबिन जेफरी की पुस्तक थी, आपको याद होगा, मोबाइल फोन्स का। ये सारा कुछ लगता था कि नहीं, इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू हैपन इन रियल वर्ल्ड, बट मिस्टर मोदी वाज द मैन। उन्हें लगा, जिन भी प्रोसेस में लगा कि दीज चेंजेस कैन बी एक्चुअलाइज्ड। मुझे याद है पार्लियामेंट में जब हम 14 में आए थे, हमारे राजीव जी, वन ऑफ द बेस्ट पार्लियामेंटेरियंस वी हैड, वी मिस हिम। हम सारे अक्रॉस द पार्टी लाइन विश्वास करते थे कि ये जनधन, ये ट्रिनिटी, ये सारे अकाउंट्स, ये मोबाइल बैंकिंग, इट्स नॉट पॉसिबल, ये कैसे होगा। 60s में देयर हैज बीन ए लॉन्ग हिस्ट्री की विचारों के बीच, आइडियोलॉजी, फ्रांस की क्रांति से लेकर पिछले 2 वर्षों तक, या तो आइडियोलॉजी ने समाज को बदला, या धीरे धीरे टेक्नोलॉजी बदल रही थी? अभी मैं एक बहुत हाल में 2023-22 की किताब है ये, ग्रेग बर्मैन और आब्रे फॉक्स की ग्रेजुअल इकोनॉमिक्स में पढ़ा, ऑक्सफोर्ड ने छापा है। ये कैसे टेक्नोलॉजी और ये पॉलिटिकल आइडियोलॉजी के बीच पिछले 250 वर्षों से ये संघर्ष चल रहा था, और पॉलिटिकल आइडियोलॉजी ने जो क्रांतियां दी, बदलाव समाज में दिए, उसे लगा कि रातों रात दुनिया बदल जाएगी, बट दैट नेवर हैपेंड। जो ये आपका इंडस्ट्रियल रिवोल्यूशन हुआ फर्स्ट, अब तो फोर्थ में हम लोग हैं, पोस्ट इंडस्ट्रियल रिवोल्यूशन के बाद के एरा में, अब तो एआई का दौर है। उसके बीच 60s में वेस्ट में द एंड ऑफ आइडियोलॉजी पुस्तक आई, 92 में फुकुयामा का द एंड ऑफ हिस्ट्री, ये लेटेस्ट है जिसमें वो करेक्ट नहीं, टेक्नोलॉजी हैज टेकन द ड्राइव नाउ,
And that's where we are.
यस, और टेक्नोलॉजी की वजह से ये सारी चीजें आप देख रहे हैं। अब तो एआई के एरा में, दैट्स अ डिफरेंट थिंग, आई विल कम टू दैट।
Thank you.
थैंक यू।
Vijay, let me come to you. We've talked about social revolution, political shift, all of that, and there are pros and cons and all of those things. Let me put you the question which the minister was asking you. When will we see an Indian kind of big behemoth globally in the way that he was talking about?
I think this is happening. The journey starts from having a local market first, and classically smartphone is produced, and this movement of middle class to a larger middle class has created a domestic market. In my opinion, problems of nearly 5 billion other people which are not in western part may not be solved by the people which are sitting in west, because there is a different kind of nuance, whether it is related to cost, value, or way of method, or cultural, or nuances of execution, which can only be built in these countries, which are one of these countries. It did get created in China, and we did see China create manufacturing and every other revolution of the world. When it comes to software and acceptance to the world, it will be happening out of India. I'm very happy to tell you that PayTM operates Japan's largest payment company, and we have just chosen not to keep it the same brand name because we wanted to keep the brand name controlled by regulators. RBI did not want to go into the rest of the world, so it's a different brand name. We run the largest payment company with 100 in a country of 135 million users, 55 million monthly active users, which is way bigger than any other thing in that country. And it is done where we would have never expected a quote-unquote third world country to export technology. When Prime Minister Abe met Prime Minister Modi, he talked about that one of your country's company is running it, and it is just the beginning. And it is just the beginning because we sitting in this country can understand the way the technology has to be built for the next 5 billion, and those countries are seeking from India that look up to and expect it. In fact, I was in one of those conferences where RBI was interacting with people like us, and Governor was saying on the stage that we want you to go out of this country to build these systems in other part of the world. What we have built in this country is a global reference. So, as they say that necessity is the mother of invention, what we are inventing in this country, what we are building in this country, what we are solving in this country is a need of the world at a price point and a skill point that is phenomenally incredible. If Japanese could build machines, Germans could build machines, Americans could build software, we will build the software for the world that is coming tomorrow, and it is inevitable. It is just a sequence of time that first you do it in the home, first you train yourself, build yourself, get confidence, and then the risk capital and opportunity in the world will take you far.
And when you were scaling up PayTM, because there was India Stack, because there was a lot of digital public infrastructure was ready, how much role did that influence in the way that you grew?
There's no doubt about it. By the way, PayTM started QR payments in 2014-15. We gave it to UPI, which is what we see today everywhere in the country. So I was at the time when this was taken. It was the beginning. If you remember, we're talking about board meeting. I remember where people were saying that, oh, you're talking about mobile payment. This country does not have mobile, internet, and then payment. Hope you understand there are 3 different ladders that you have to cross. And my point was, and I had a call with Mark Zuckerberg. If you remember, there was that free internet plan that he had, and his call was that I hope you understand that as Facebook, what we're doing is good for country. And I hope you understand this is how the internet will reach every nook and corner of India. I said, thank you so much for being concerned about my country. And I very happily can assure you that your concern will not be required after a few years. Let it be to be solved by us, not you and not the method that you are suggesting. I have generous expectation of you to not to touch our internet in this country. In other words, well, PayTM is a story of 2014 to 18, which is the time when this internet and Aadhaar also took off. So we were the customers who were submitting to it, and it grew together. And there's no doubt about it that when you look at onboarding, KYC, etc., the Aadhaar has been the truest foundation. So Aadhaar is the truest foundation for us, and then we are the ones who built the mobile payments together on the India stack and so on. The best part, I can again tell you one more thing here is that, I mean, I see sir here, he built GIS software in the country when PC was not there. So you're talking about, this is the phenomenal country where pre-PC to the post-AI world all exists in a single generation. I mean, this is extraordinary to say. I think this is an extraordinary movement. What I want to tell you is that we did not have risk capital. And you can start from that. You did not have risk capital. Ideas were there. That is why, and hassle, ideas, ability, capability was never lacking. It was the opportunity of this country that was not there because of the customer market and risk capital that was not there. And I feel that we are the luckiest and privileged decade that we have been, the decade that you are quoting about, where the rest of the world came to put money, rest of the risk capital could come in this country, and this country could have the customer base which could accept it, and we are just output of a timing. I don't see any less skill. In fact, I believe that previous generations were far more skilled and able and resilient than our generation have been, because we've been sitting on the shoulders of those what they created. And whether it was one point time export of IT, or Prime Minister Modi started Make in India, which is export of manufacturing, there is no doubt about it that we will export the products to the stacks to the world now in this edition.
Thank you very much, Vijay. Let me come to you, Aprameya. You co-founded KOGO. We've just had a huge change in your great rival, Twitter to X and so on. Let me ask you, when you look at trends in the country, where do you see the market going? How does it differ by language? How does it differ by region? We'd be very interested in knowing that.
Yeah, so for us at KOGO, about 80% of our platform is actually languages, right? So we've built an influence network, a place to come and make news, give your updates as influencers of the country, right? So everybody can continue talking in English, but because of the flows that we've constructed, you can actually translate to multiple languages and then post. It reflects broadly the population distribution of the country. Like 55% of our platform is Hindi. Then we've got 20% as English, which will keep reducing to less than 10%. Our third biggest language is actually Portuguese, because Brazil uses us. The president of Brazil is on KOGO. He actually sits in Brazil and KOGO's in Portuguese, then translates it into Hindi, and every Hindi post of his gets about 200-300 likes, and it's reaching people in Lucknow, Kanpur, Indore, and nobody even knows he's building influence in India, right? So direct, as in most citizens there might not even have known Lula. President Lula is the president of Brazil. Now they are, right? So I think there are all kinds of behaviors that are starting to set in. To your previous question, we want to take KOGO global. We see that there's a demand from every country across the world, because they see two major problems, right? Misuse of data and interference in local affairs. These are two big reasons why every country wants a local version of social media, right? And we think we can actually be social media as a service. You tell us your rules for your country, we will apply them, right? So 80% of social media will work in a particular way, but depending on what your definition of hate speech is, freedom of speech is, what kind of content your country allows and doesn't allow, we can actually make it into a social media as a service, right? So I think going deeper into India and going global, both of these realms are happening with just one platform. Today, actually we don't have, we have a 120 member team. Nobody's doing any significant work, right? Nobody. this platform is just running.
They won't be very happy hearing that.
We need them, but they're all very happy. I mean, the 3 years of hard work that we put in just shows the kind of information that's flowing across our platform. Like, statements that are made on Ku probably are not being made anywhere else in language. So, all the small towns, so we are predominantly capitals of lesser known states, is the way I would call it. Right? And second cities of each state, which is lesser. Delhi is the only exception that hits the top 10 in cities because it's Hindi speaking. But these are the geographies and languages that we use.
So I remember FC Kohli, who was TCS's founder, if you know. And I remember there was a time when he was given Entrepreneur of the Year, and I asked him the question that why do you think that India could not do what Japan and Germany could do, which are language countries and all. And his answer was very simple, that in India, the computer revolution was Englishized, and India never pursued even a Microsoft Office in a local language. And the day when the language becomes the primary way to reach technology to the masses, which effectively smartphone through the color scheme, font screen, and everything else did it, that day the revolution of technology will happen in India. And I mean, as a legendary that he was, he actually could predict this. And Sanjeev Bikhchandani very popularly also said the same thing, that when this question used to be, when will Microsoft, or when will the Google or Facebook or world-sized companies will come from India, he also said the same thing. The local markets are the beginning. So exactly these two line items are the reason that your book is here.
Thank you. That's actually a super point to make, and let me put that to Rohan, you, because see, one of the points that keeps coming up when I was looking at the book as well or researching for it was that, look, China became a great a global scale economy when its own market size grew, and not just what it was exporting or being the back office of the world. Now, in the business that you do, you run MapmyIndia. Your father's here, who was the first set up the whole system. Let me ask you, what is the take up of the business? What is the take up within the travel industry or people linked to that within the country across regions, and how easy is it to monetize it?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great journey of digitally mapping India since 28 years ago. I think my father used to say that someday 80% of all data would have a location component. This is like early 90s, and people used to wonder what are these even words. And the digital mapping infrastructure in India didn't exist then. So that was their kind of mission, that build the digital mapping infrastructure, asset, map data product, because they could visualize infinite use cases for these maps, which probably people had not been able to visualize. So just to give you an example, in the last 5-6 years, we've seen direct tax and indirect tax take off in India. CBDT and GSTN are well lauded. Now they have been using MapmyIndia for the last 5-6 years to geocode and geotag every taxpayer. You have crores of taxpayers, you have their addresses. So where are they exactly? And they call it Project Insight in both of the organizations. In the case of GSTN, they're able to weed out shell companies and understand where tax collections should be coming from. In the direct tax, they're able to see, we give them geodemographics of high income areas. And they say, oh, when I geotag, this guy is paying tax and the next guy is not paying tax, both of them are living in a high income colony. And so that leads to usage. So just giving you one example of how, but if I take Gati Shakti on the other example, logistics cost, PM has talked about, has to come down for India's kind of, let's say, dominance or cost efficiency competency. Just the consumer app, we have Mapples app. Now in that, it tells you where to climb a flyover or where not to climb a flyover in 3D. It also tells you what the trip toll cost is or fuel cost is. Just these two things can help everybody save money, save time. So that can bring down 5 minutes per trip, on example. And you multiply that by the billions of trips that are happening. You're really talking about lakhs of crores of saving. So the uptake has been great. Our IPO was a success because there are multiple industries using us. I think India now is at the point where every company, Vijay sir is here, PayTM has been our customer, partner, inspiration, mentor, personally and professionally. People are using maps and location and digital technologies in such interesting ways to optimize their business, to enhance governance, to improve the lives of citizens. I think India and Indians know how to use technology. Of course, we have a government which has a vision and execution capability to leverage technology. And so it's the decade for technology, it's the decade for India, and that's why Techade.
Thanks, Rohan. Let me ask Raj. This point about democratization of language that Vijay was making, and that being the the inflection point, if you as it were. Let me, in that context, let me ask you two questions. In the age of AI, a lot of things will change. So where does that leave us in India now, especially with a lot of AI is based on models which are not necessarily in our languages, or that some of that is changing now. And the second is the startup ecosystem. How is that changing now in India?
So, firstly, congratulations on the launch of the book. Like somebody said, it's thinner than the last one. So, as far as language is concerned, one of the things is that what technology has done is like Vijay was saying, and like Sanjeev had said, that unless you democratize the language, unless you have enough languages in which to communicate, there would be no point in technology. Now, what we're doing with AI and with technology and with language and with MapmyIndia as well, in terms of locational intelligence, is using this democratization of language to actually create new jobs, to create breaking of barriers where economic opportunities didn't exist in the travel industry. So KOGO essentially is a AI travel expert. And to that extent, what we've managed to do is that people post-COVID are actually gathering experiences more than just doing bookings or going to specific places, right? And we've managed to actually get people in remote areas, like Harivansh ji was saying, his village between two rivers. There's actually cultural agents instead of travel agents now that we're able to create, and that's a huge opportunity that's happening because of the whole language scene. As far as the startup ecosystem in India is concerned, I'm a serial entrepreneur. This is my 6th company, and in the span of 26 years, of course, it's far easier now. The first company was a nightmare to form. Just to get it off the ground took a lot of time. और उस समय में और आज में बहुत फर्क है. So it's a good start, but there's lots to be done. There's still issues around regulation, around compliance. A lot of the younger founders today still flounder around when they're getting to do something. And Piyush ji to chale gaye, maybe Harivansh.
I was going to say, you could have said that when he was here.
Maybe Harivansh ji will get a couple of rules removed for us, and the startup ecosystem will get a little faster and better. But it's a great start, and but still we have many miles to go before it gets. And AI can actually help in better governance, in better compliance,
right,
in faster 24/7 implementation of the same.
Right. Thank you so much. We are really out of time. Thank you so much for making the time, for coming here, for spending the time. Harivansh ji, Rohan, Raj, Aprameya and Vijay. I wish we could have continued this longer, but I'm getting dirty stares from my producer. But we should take questions to open this up, and that will actually be great. I actually thought we were going to be kicked out of the room, so that's why I was ending. Okay, open for questions. Yeah, I have one. Yes, sir.
My name is Yatish. Most of the work that's happened in the DPG space has not happened because of government or has happened in spite of government, in the sense that most development of Aadhaar or the backend protocol happened in the non-profit space. And that's kind of created a guardrail that hopefully will take some of these startups global. But when you go global, do you see these stacks that have been developed here, like, not only the India stack, but Gati Shakti or the ride-hailing this thing, or even the the whole payment ecosystem, Vijay, which is very peculiar to India. It doesn't exist anywhere else in this form. Do you see this kind of getting replicated in a private space, or do you see it getting replicated in a DPI space? No.
I believe that many countries are seeking India's help to replicate some stuff, but there is a food chain theory. the frontier countries look up to emerging countries, look up to developing countries, look up to developed countries. So maybe we will have impact or opportunity to help the frontier countries, but not necessarily the other countries. So I don't think that we will have a biometric face tag available on a public infrastructure in the United States or the United Kingdom in a short span of time, which means that you will not have it. But you will, I mean, we have to build this kind of structure. And I was trying to build this bank interconnectivity as a concept in Japan and they discussed, and I met FSA, which is authority, and they were like, why would you want to do it? And I said, it's real-time money transfer and so on. So the gentleman told me one of the funniest thing, I was like shocked. Do you know in Japan, ATMs shut at 10 p.m.? Like, really? I did not know it. And why? Why else will you walk into the branch otherwise? Wow. So I said, okay, ye nahi chahiye aapko. The country was protecting this to not happen. In other words, in a developing country, why things happen or why India things are happening are different reasons. So in other words, I'm not going to expect DPI infrastructure to get settled in those countries because it is by willingness of the government. Somebody can take the import, somebody can locally build or privately build. But this is a model that definitely will get built. That is what you are trying to see. Private, most probably, because not every country will get government. But I have a question to Nalin on this one because you've written this book. You just heard sir saying that DPI, Digital Public Infrastructure, which is owned by government, becomes the foundation. Permission to use DPI becomes the government's prerogative.
Yes.
You know what I'm trying to say?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So the businesses will be under risk of what? Will it be? Do you think, as a commentator of the digital change that is happening, right to use DPI will be a part of fundamental right of businesses?
So I think okay,
You got the question?
I got the question, and I think it's an important question, and it's an important question not just for the domestic economy but also the global one as we go
Right.
forward. And
Some international company could say, I will not use it because I may be denied to use it.
so there are about, as far at last count, as I understand it, there were some 72 countries who have expressed an interest of different kind of using different parts of the Indian DPI structure. That's what the government says. Now, one of the big concerns about this is कि सरकार के उसमें, so today they allow you, tomorrow they won't allow you. What about issues about security? What about issues about all of those? Right to use. So I think,
because a company which will not use them will be lagging now.
Absolutely. So I think one of the key issues that we should debate is, should you set up autonomous structures that control these and take this out of the control of the state? These are independent autonomous structures of the kind that the global commons were built earlier, for example, in other domains. Now, what form or shape that will take, we should start having that conversation. At least a difficult conversation to have. I think we're just at the very beginning of this conversation right now.
But most of the DPIs are under global commons. They are in the open source space. So, I mean, an NPCI.
No, operating them is not. They are commercial decisions.
But NPCI is the law.
It's a commercial body owned by certain people. It's
Yeah,
not.
but it is a
There is
non-profit.
absolutely nothing common about it.
It's a non-profit body, not owned by the government.
Just because you're not profit, ETL, ETS, the one that takes GMAT and GRE, does not make it a good for the world company. You know what I'm trying to say. So I'm for it, but I'm saying this structure is not. Yeah.
Question, yeah, Abhishek. And then Shiraji after that.
Yeah, so my question is, as we are saying of a fourth industrial revolution or AI, ML ruling the world, like earlier we said who owned the, other natural resources or say oil and all, they rule, today we're talking of data. Do you see India ever reaching that position, like say where China, US is that they own the data and the companies in a manner they can practically rule the world through technology, which is being envisaged by countries like China and US?
The digital data protection bill that has come is actually giving that ownership to the citizen back and forcing domestic or international all kind of companies to not take data, etc., etc. So I would say that this is a very timely bill. It is earnest on companies, and bigger the company, costlier it is for that company to do data mistakes. But at the same point, this is good in the sense. So unlike in US where there is a big daddy which supersedes over, like BlackBerry used to own tons of data about people sending emails. Did FBI have access to BlackBerry?
Yeah.
Does FBI or American government has backdoor entry to Apple systems or some other Android systems? I'm not going to have an answer to it because it is publicly debated and questioned. The single answer I'm going to say it that at least India is saving itself where the access to the data is at least available in public domain information and questions like these. So it's a timely bill. your answer whether the India can create entities which will own the data. We own only our country's data. You rather in India will not be able to do it. It is a publicly owned democracy and not a bipartisan like US either, or a China which is single party, or other countries that are single party. Yes. Really.
Thank you, Nalin. Mr. Sharma, if we cut the clutter, and as it is everybody is getting late, but we would expect you to give us a very sharp and straight answer that digital revolution in the thing this is ongoing. You are insider also and outsider also because you have to deal with the government. Can you tell us that what is not at all working out and you are concerned about it? And what are the landmines ahead in a phase of 20, 30 years from now? What a psychological, social, or anything?
So, I'll quickly talk about Aadhaar. Aadhaar should be the foundation of this country. Logically, it has been proven. But regulators and judiciary has a different opinion. The regulator actually has a different opinion than government. So, in regulated environment, Aadhaar is not considered final authority of identity. Actually, in India, for bank account, it is not. And that changed literally a few months back. They actually called out to banks like us that you should not trust the data that is in Aadhaar. So you have to take an operation risk requirement and trust yourself instead of that. In other words, when the system has come, the governing of the system to become what its system's purpose is a strict requirement. But because of being in democracy where the vibrancy of opinion and systems makes a lot of sense, it is what will be not. In other words, we will talk about foundation led by Aadhaar, but regulator could just reject it. And I can share that there are multi-entities in government and regulations who try to create multi-parallel systems even today. And I'm going to say that and it is because we have vibrant independent systems and authorities in this country, and they are independent in decisions. And that means that this country is not a single opinion and do not answer it. It's a nice thing, it's a costly thing, it's a challenging to understand. Oh, till yesterday we were trusting it and today we are not. And those kind of things. And then also you can understand that risks of what system is created is understood when the system expands to a dramatic level. For example, like today only the government stopped allowing buying of bulk SIM cards because the fraudsters were using it and so on and so forth. So it was nice to use, but it created some issues. Now, this is exactly the reason that when we expect it to be so smooth, it will practically not be. That's my in and out of it.
Are you worried about digital divide in the country?
I'm not. One point of time I used to be, and I hate people who call I'm building for Bharat, I'm building for India. That's the bullshit thing. Never do this. This is one country and one nation. You rather not want to build it for India and Bharat separately. In other words, I treat him what is he building for India or Bharat at the same point of time, and so am I, and so is everyone else. And I am not, because the pricing got sorted out to a lowest common denominator. If the pricing of the technology access systems was not drive down to this country would have become elite. In fact, I want to tell you that export of this country remained elite IT services, which wanted all of us to be engineers instead of a services to a manufacturing led, which wanted us to open manufacturing or not. So I think in the last 10 years that have also changed. So that is a change decade.
That's fascinating. Thank you. Rohit Bansal has a question, and I think that's the last one. We really have to close then. And I'll get the last word to Harivansh ji after that to close.
Yeah, hi. Nalin, congratulations. I've sort of attended book launches on Olympics and BJP and what have you.
That tells people how old we are.
Right. So keep it short. I'll say geotagging, geomapping, all kinds of mentions of how the digital chain has been built in India. Not a single mention of geo.
No. I think geo played a fundamental role in terms of bringing the pricing down. There's no question around that. 2015, all of that. There's a chart in the book which actually is which kind of shows data pricing coming down and the take up of this going up, and that chart is pretty much coterminous with the rise of geo. So absolutely, there is. I mean, geo I think played an important role in that, and including now in what's happening with the cabling, for example. because a lot of this also depends on the physical infrastructure. So in terms of the undersea cables and so on, a lot of that is now happening. So reliance, I think, is fundamentally important in that.
I'm actually going to say this, that pre-geo expectation of reach of internet and post-geo expectation of access of internet. I think that India's technology history will have this page called pre-geo or post-geo existence. That's the level of impact it has.
Harivansh, you said when you came that you were the only non-tech person on the panel, and he said, "मैं क्या बोलूँगा because I'm non-tech." So let me give you the last word after hearing to everybody else.
बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग, बहुत इंफॉर्मेटिव. I'll say two things. एक तो आपको बहुत बधाई. आपकी पुस्तक हर भाषा में हो, then the people will come to know कि what kind of change is going to take place. ये change जो हो रहा है देश में. Just think कि now it's possible in AI era कि हम पार्लियामेंट में सारे लैंग्वेजेस में साइमल्टेनियसली डिबेट कर सकते हैं. Information that way, what kind of role is going to play? Information is a power now. Number two, judiciary अपने डिसीजन जो देगी उसका ऑपरेटिव पोर्शन विल बी इन लोकल लैंग्वेजेस. किस तरह का इंपैक्ट लोगों में होगा. एंड थर्ड एंड लास्ट थिंग, जो गवर्नेंस में एजुकेशन, एग्रीकल्चर, गवर्नेंस में जो बड़े चेंजेस टेक्नोलॉजी से हो रहे हैं, आई एम नॉट कमेंटिंग कि अच्छा बुरा क्या है उसमें, पर जो फार रीचिंग कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस के हैं. मैं लगभग आज से 10-11 वर्ष पहले बस्तर में गया फैक्ट फाइंडिंग कमेटी में नक्सल इलाकों में. कैन यू थिंक कि वो डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स हमारे देश के इस गवर्नमेंट ने 2014 के बाद प्रायोरिटाइज किया, दे आर द प्रायोरिटी डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स, दे हैव गिवन अ पर्टिकुलर नेम फॉर दैट. उन जगहों पर डिजिटल टेक्नोलॉजी से क्या बड़ा इंपैक्ट हो रहा है और कितने बड़े पैमाने पर जो देश के बिल्कुल हाशिए पर लोग थे उनके जीवन में बदलाव आ रहा है. Somebody should impact those kind of things कि टेक्नोलॉजी ने कितना बड़ा बदलाव किया. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that's a great way to close the evening. Thank you everybody for making the time on a Thursday evening, and to the panelists for making the time, and even though we got very late in starting the panel, so thank you.